What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about King in Black, Marauders #1 by Jerry Duggan and Luke Ross. And in this video, we're going to learn that the threat of Null, the King in Black, is so potent, so severe, so dangerous, that it's going to force the mutants of Krakoa to do something that I don't think many readers are expecting them to do anytime soon. We're going to talk about all that and more right now. But first, let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is the fact that the Marauders have been tasked with going towards New York and trying to retrieve their lost mutants who sit in positions of power. Now, one of the things I know some people are probably going to be rubbed the wrong way by is the fact that when we first saw King in Black #1, we know that not just Cyclops and Storm are, abducted by Null, but we also know that Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, Cable, Wolverine, and Magneto were present on the ground floor when King in Black #1 kicked off. Now, we do know that somehow Magneto seemed to escape because he's been around in other areas of King in Black. We've also seen him on comms with Professor Xavier, and when the Avengers and everybody are talking about what the next move is going to be, we've also seen him present for that. We also know that Cable has been taken over by Null. He's been nullified and been sent after his compatriots on Sword, but we don't really know the whereabouts of Jean Grey, Wolverine, or Nightcrawler, what has happened to either one of them. We haven't really seen any of them in the context of King in Black. We've only really seen them active within the context of, your normal X-Men title. So I actually do find it kind of funny that, they're not talking about going into this mission to get Jean or to get Nightcrawler. They're only worried about Storm because she is a member of the Quiet Council and an Omega level mutant, and Cyclops is, of course, he's the Captain Commander. He is their Captain of War, and since these are two political officers, they want them back. They don't really seem to be that concerned about Jean Grey, Wolverine, or Nightcrawler, or even Cable for that matter. This isn't something that's so much a big deal, it's just an observation that I noticed, but hey, it is what it is. Point of the matter is while they are trying to go towards New York to save their would-be missing political figures in Cyclops and Storm, they get a distress call from a human ship. A ship with the call sign, the Rambling Bard, and of course, even though Bishop does point out that yes, I am in charge of this mission, but we aren't on land yet, so right now, Kate Pryde is in charge of things, and he's willing to let her make the call even though he doesn't agree with it. She wants to go after the Rambling Bard and save anyone who could possibly be under threat from all of these crazy Grendels that are flying through the sky. And they do end up going after the Rambling Bard. The Marauders, and this is something I just find really interesting in this, is the fact that I feel like the X-Men characters seem to be the best equipped to go up against threats like this. We've seen this in the pages of Sword. We've even seen this in King in Black, especially in the case of Marauders. The Marauders don't even really seem to be all that bothered by the Grendels. I mean, now of course they have Iceman, an Omega level mutant. They also have Kate Pryde. They got Bishop, and they've got Pyro, and they've even got Lockheed, who even seems to be capable of running fades on these Grendels, which I just find freaking hilarious, and I'm here for it. But the thing that actually kicks all of the events that I really want to talk about into motion is when they get to the Rambling Bard and they save the humans on the ship, and they're asked, what are we going to do about your cargo? What were you carrying? Do we need to go save it? And the captain of the ship very sheepishly says, oh, it's just olive oil by the cask. Nothing we can't grow again. But fortunately, Bishop recognizes that because of all the battling, all the fighting, all the talking, no one would have heard what was actually in the ship. But Bishop picked up on the Morse code that was being outputted, and he goes to look into the ship of his own accord. And when he gets down there, he finds dozens upon dozens of human refugees. And this changes everything. This leads to the Marauders having to save this ship, which is quickly sinking, which they do very easily. Iceman uplifts the ship with little to no effort whatsoever. He even goes on to say that Namor couldn't even sink this ship down. And of course, Kate is quite bothered by everything that's going on. She ends up slapping the taste out of the mouth of the captain for lying to her. And of course, this is one of those situations where, yeah, they can't kill these humans because mutant law dictates it. You kill no human. No human can die by mutant hands. So they're not going to kill the humans, but what they are going to do is send them somewhere very unpleasant. And Iceman sets it up probably the best I think it could have ever been set. Iceman arranges for them to be able to use a Krakoan portal, something that pains Kate Pryde because, as we know, because of the nature of her mutant powers, she can't use the Krakoan portals. So it's actually hurting her that they get to use them, but she can't. But that's neither here nor there. When the humans go through the portal, they realize that they are in the Namib Desert of Africa, and about a day's walk from the nearest settlement. Now, of course, if these people die here, they die of their own accord, and they died because they just couldn't hack it, not because any mutant actually killed them, though they probably will make it. And I even love this point here because, Iceman has become such a cold sumbitch, and I love it. Pun clearly intended, but I love it because when the people are sitting there talking about how, oh, well, what are we gonna do? What about water? Well, we're gonna thirst to death, and Iceman just drops a pile of ice cubes right in front of the gate, and then he deuces out. Where things get even more interesting, though, is what are they going to do with these human refugees they found on the ship? Because for one, they have nowhere to go. They want to get away from what's happening. They were supposed to be transported to Canada. The men who were operating that ship were very likely to just dump them somewhere and leave them to their own devices, much the way Iceman left them in Africa. And right now they have nowhere to go. And because of the threat of the King in Black, since it's spread everywhere just about to some degree or another, there's really no safe place for them to go. But all that aside, Kate has to make a decision. And this is a decision that I think is probably most likely going to ruffle some feathers down the road. Kate reaches out telepathically to Emma Frost because they do share a connection now, and Emma understands exactly what's going on. She sees what the Marauders are up against and what humanity stands to lose. However, she doesn't think that it's the greatest of ideas to bring humans to Krakoa, which is what Kate Pryde wants. Even by Emma Frost's own admission, what they were supposed to do is go get Cyclops, and this is kind of like the eternal shade that Storm and Emma always kind of throw at each other, but even kind of dismissively bring up the fact that, oh yeah, and Storm too. But when Magneto walks up, who, mind you, Magneto is probably the one who is the most dismissive of humans, probably short of maybe, say, people like Mr. Sinister or Sebastian Shaw on the council. But one thing that actually surprised me was how Magneto responds to the situation. Maybe because he was there, he actually saw what humanity was up against with the King in Black when he was there in the first issue. Though initially he did not want to open gates up to humanity to wind up potentially bringing a threat from the human world to Krakoa. That was something that was completely off the table. However, in this particular instance, Magneto seems to be a little bit more on board with what's going on. And I actually thought this was pretty interesting because it was kind of one of those situations where you're kind of seeing a little bit of growth, you're seeing a little bit of change, you're seeing a little bit of compassion, something that I think a lot of, supposed X-Men readers took umbrage with when the X-Men decided to look out for themselves and not look out for humanity. Suddenly there was a problem when the mutants who have been persecuted all this time but always tried to save humans suddenly decided that, oh wait, you guys still hate us even though we save your lives? We're just gonna look out for ourselves. And suddenly supposed X-Men readers had a problem with this, and it's funny to me because why do you care? You're acting like the X-Men are real and that if they are real, they won't save you because you're a flat scan. That actually says a lot more about the supposed X-Men readers than it does about the X-Men themselves. I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of these people who say this stuff don't actually read X-Men comics. You can tell. You can tell. They often wind up sounding more like William Stryker and Graydon Creed than they do actually sounding like anybody else. Thing is, it's kind of funny about this is, yeah, they are actually going to let humanity on to Krakoa. Now, granted, this isn't permanent. It is just until they can find some other place for them to go. They're even gifted some Krakoan flowers, some special ones that'll help feed them and shelter them until they can be moved on to wherever it is they're going to go next. Now, one of the best parts about this to me is the conversation that Magneto is going to have with one of the refugees, Nyoka. And it's a very interesting one because initially Nyoka is very understandably skeptical about why Magneto allowed them to come to the island, because as far as humanity is aware, no human is allowed to be on the island, though we have actually talked about this in the past in regards to characters like Juggernaut not being allowed to be on the island, even though he is the stepbrother of Charles Xavier and he is technically a former X-Man himself. And we also know there's two humans who've lived on the island regularly in the form of Northstar's husband and Jubilee's adopted son, both of which are human. But Magneto actually says something that I think shows a little bit of character growth in the fact that he says that he always thought of Krakoa as a safe haven, a sanctuary for mutant kind. But he says that maybe it was just always that, just a sanctuary, a place for someone to feel safe. And now that these refugees are lost and stranded with nowhere to go, maybe this is the same for them as well. Now, the thing that I think is going to probably, and your mileage with this part may vary, but I actually thought this was a very nice turn here, is the fact that, yeah, Magneto is showing character growth. He's showing that he is learning to think outside the box when it comes to humans and mutants living together or potentially having any kind of relationship beyond being just a purely political one. When he tells Nyoka that, yeah, she's right to be skeptical of him because weak nations prey upon those in need. Strong nations do not fear showing kindness, and that is how Magneto views this. He is now realizing that Krakoa is strong enough that they can show signs of kindness, which a lot of times other nations may take for weakness. He knows that they can protect themselves. They have so much to offer and they have so much to defend, but they're more than capable of defending what they have to offer. But Magneto doesn't want to offer them sanctuary without payment. But he doesn't want money. What he wants Nyoka to do, and the rest of the refugees as well, is that when they move on to wherever they go to next, that they speak of the kindness of Krakoa and that Krakoa was the one who saved them when no one else would. Now, whether or not this pays dividends down the road remains to be seen. However, I thought it was a really nice turn. One thing we are going to talk about real quick too is the fact that, once again, this isn't even an X-Force book, but somehow Beast shenanigans are going down in this book, and it is in direct regards to Bishop. Now, you may have noticed that throughout the comic, Bishop just seemed kind of uneasy. He just seemed like something was up with him, and something Pyro even takes notice of, though Pyro doesn't really understand the full gravity of what it is that Bishop was actually sent out to do. Now, of course, they were sent on a mission to collect Cyclops and Storm and take them back from Null's thrall. They weren't really sent there for anybody else. None of the other mutants, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, Cable, none of them were sent out for. And really, when you think about it, it's kind of on brand for Beast at this point, but Beast makes it very clear to Bishop that you're gonna go out there, you're gonna collect them, you're gonna get them back. You are gonna free them from Null's thrall and bring them back to us. But if you can't free them from Null, free them the other way. Essentially saying, kill Cyclops, kill Storm, and presumably any other mutant, but specifically them, not because they want them to, stay dead, but because if they go ahead and kill them, they can bring them back. This is kind of one of the areas where, the whole life is cheap thing comes into play with a lot of the current readership, Quotey Fingers readership of the X-Men comics. How people don't like how, oh, they just kill themselves and then come back. Where's the story in that? Well, there is a story there to tell, because you get stories like this where you get to see Beast being a cold-blooded bastard, which is what he has been and has become even more so over the course of 16, 17 some odd X-Force comics in the last year alone. But it's also one of those things you could tell doesn't sit right with Bishop. He doesn't seem to be incredibly on board with what's going on. Bishop seems very disgruntled about it. I don't think he wants to. And honestly, something tells me if he's pushed to it, I don't think he will. But once again, he was chosen for this mission because of his wartime status. Who knows? Bishop might do it. We've seen him do some pretty jacked up shit in the past, so it's not above him, but I don't know. I feel like Bishop has grown so much since then that we probably won't see that happen again. But anyways, that was King in Black Marauders #1. I thought it was a really cool book. Actually, I was a little disappointed that this wasn't just a core Marauders title, kind of like what they did with Sword #2. They was like, no, this is just Sword #2. It got King in Black on it, but it's just Sword #2. We're just carrying on with what we normally do, and this happens to be happening while we're doing it. No, they went ahead and said, nope, we're just gonna do, this isn't Marauders 18, this is just King in Black Marauders #1, whatever. It is what it is. I'll take it. It's a good book. It was fun. I actually like the character growth we get to see, and I like to see some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes with Bishop and Beast. I like seeing Kate Pryde back in the saddle again, leading the Marauders and, taking charge, and her and Bishop's playful banter back and forth with one another. And also, of course, even going as far as the stuff with Magneto and Naoko, learning, that Magneto has grown. He's showing this growth, this maturity. I mean, for a guy that he's already pretty old, but still, like, he's showing this maturity in his character since House of X, which initially with House of X, he didn't want Krakoa to have anything to do with humans. And now he's opening up to it. Hell, as recently as Sword #1, he was talking greasy about humanity. It just shows that, yeah, over time, you can change. People can change. Their minds can change. So, I mean, it's not to say he's not the same person, but he at least shows that he has more depth than what he used to. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share this video around with all your friends and all over the internet so they can know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to the King in Black Marvel Comics event, as well as the X-Men spinoff series, The Marauders. And also let me know what you thought about this issue. How do you feel about Bishop's secret mission from Beast? And how do you feel about Magneto's change of heart? Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.